Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I got a bunch of stories here that interest me quite a bit, and I certainly hope they interest you. Let me take a little, this is not coffee, but it's, I'm John Martin, not Dean Martin, so you can guess what's in it. If you've never seen the show, it says, welcome to my side of the wall, or I want you, on my side of the wall, which was given to me by my lovely wife. All right, first article is from CNN. Now you may say, well, what the heck are you watching CNN for? Well, as I've told you before, I watch shows and read articles so that you don't have to. Certain things I do as a public service for my fellow man and my fellow countrymen. The title here, Trump blow-up leaves lawmakers worried about disaster aid and budget talks, from CNN. President Donald Trump's angry threats Wednesday to not work with congressional Democrats until they stopped investigating him came at a sensitive time for talks over several important issues. Of course they are. The bipartisan negotiators on Capitol Hill and the White House had hoped to wrap up before Congress leaves as early as Thursday for Memorial Day, because they want to get the heck out of Dodge. But first, let me just say this word, bipartisanship negotiators. And if you've seen my show, you've probably heard me say this before, but as I say, if I say it, it bears repeating. Bipartisanship, I know what the dictionary says it means. It basically means, in this case, Republicans and Democrats compromising, working together for the good of the country. That's what it's supposed to be. But that ain't what it is. I hate to break it to you. Breaking news here. Bipartisanship has come to mean Republicans cave in to the Democrats. That's what bipartisanship means. And heck, the Republicans have worked bipartisanship even when they controlled every aspect of the government, let alone now that the Dems control one piece of 1/3. But of course, as I've told you before, the Democrats, if they won in 2018, just like I predicted, it wasn't that difficult a prediction, they would act like they ruled the country from the House of Representatives. So bipartisanship is a feel-good word, but what it really means is Republicans cave. And, the best way to describe all this is what they're talking about in this article, and it gets more in depth in a minute. But yesterday, and most of you have probably already seen this, but President Trump had a meeting with congressional leaders, basically Nancy Pelosi, and I think old Chucky Schumer was there, and it was to pick up their discussions about infrastructure. And Lord knows if government should do anything, it should be infrastructure. We need roads, bridges, improvements at airports. There is really no question about that. How we pay for it and all that is certainly up for debate. But I don't see how anybody could traverse much of this country and not realize that we are lacking in just maintaining our infrastructure, let alone adding to it. So I applaud them for at least trying to do something. But I think they come kind of half-hearted at best. So President Trump essentially told them, hey, look, and I'm going to get more in detail in a minute, that I'm not willing to keep negotiating with you guys if you keep investigating, keep harassing me, keep trying to basically get me out of town, so to speak, run me out on a rail. I'm not going to negotiate with you. And so that's what this whole dust-up is all about. Now, Pelosi accused the president the other day, yesterday, I think, and the day before, and of course now it's the talking point. I mean, the talking heads were like all over the place with this last night. So Nancy spouts something, and it's just like, this is the official doctrine now. She accused the president of a cover-up, literally of a cover-up, kind of like Watergate or something like that. When there is no cover-up, there is no cover-up. The president has been open, honest. I know people that don't like him won't buy that, but the Mueller investigation proves there is no cover-up, other than if you're talking about a cover-up, it involves the Democrats and the FBI covering up their spying on President Trump. That's really the only cover-up. So President Trump, and I've repeated this many times because I can't say it any better than the president, in his first rally a few days after the Mueller report came out, he basically said the Democrats have to make a decision. Are they going to work for the country? Or are they going to keep pursuing, in his words, ridiculous bullshit? And we know the answer to that. Heck, he knew the answer to that right now. So I don't blame the president at all for basically giving them the thumb or the finger in some way, so to speak, and say, look, I'm not going to work with you guys while you're doing, as he said, ridiculous bullshit. Okay, back to the story. And this is, if you're just tuning in, from CNN. The sudden flare-up, in the words of one GOP leader, left an air of uncertainty over the talks that all sides had reported upbeat progress in recent days. I don't know if I believe that, but let's just assume, and you know what to say about that, that's true. It also wasn't clear to lawmakers whether Trump's threat related only to infrastructure spending proposal that was subject of the meeting with Democrats that Trump stormed out of, or if it meant all legislation. So they're saying, was he just pissed off about and saying he's not going to work with them on infrastructure or all legislation? So let me just ask you a question here. Do you really, really believe, and I'd ask this of you Dems and snowflakes and socialists out there that I know you listen, I hear from you from time to time. Do you really believe the Dems would have given, and these are my words, the president a victory right now? Which is infrastructure would be. Keep in mind, now this, even if you're opposed to the infrastructure bill or how they're talking about paying for it, everyone would have to admit that any kind of infrastructure is going to create some level of jobs. Is there going to be waste? Well, of course, it's government, so there's definitely going to be waste. But it would create jobs quite often in areas that desperately still need jobs. And it would create the type of jobs that, like construction jobs and support staff for all of that. So if they're talking about a $2 trillion over a period of years project, it would create a lot of jobs. Well, President Trump has already done that, right? Created a bunch of jobs just in his 2 years as president. So can you imagine the Democrats wanting to give the president credit for more jobs going into election year? I think not. So I would be shocked, totally shocked, if the Democrats actually were trying to pursue a infrastructure / jobs program for America. I can't see them doing that. It's the right thing to do, but what makes you think they would do the right thing? Back to the article here. This is a quote from Senator John Thune of South Dakota. He's a GOP guy as well. Seems like we have a little bit of an issue right now. It's hard to figure out how much gets done around here, talking about DC, unless the atmospherics change. Now, it needs to change. I don't disagree with him in general. I'm not trying to bash Mr. Thune, but the Dems, let me tell you, here's the deal. The Dems have a common ground. The establishment, the rats up there in the swamp, that are both establishment Republican rhinos and the progressive Dems. By the way, there aren't any other kind of Democrats, just so you know. They're all progressive. They're just varying degrees of them. But the Dems are only interested in taking down Trump. I think they have proved that beyond a shadow of a doubt. And the establishment Republicans, I got to be honest with you, and this is coming from a guy who is a Republican, they're only interested in surviving Trump. They're only interested in surviving Trump. That's it. Those people like Romney, even Mitch McConnell, although he's done a great job, and I've given old Turtlehead quite a bit of credit for working with the presidents on all these judgeships, the general feeling among them is they don't really, you really think that Mitch McConnell or Chuck, what's his name, Schumer out of New York, his kind of counterpart of the Democratic side, do you think they really care that much who the president is? Because presidents come and go. President Trump, whether it's 4 years and I hope 8 years, he will come and go. But people like Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer are there forever, man. They were like first and second mates on the ark kind of thing. All they wait for is their turn at the trough. So I'll say again, and these are my words, the Dems are only interested in taking down Trump, and the establishment rhino Republicans are only really interested in surviving Trump. That's what this is all about. White House and congressional negotiators have been working for weeks to resolve differences over an overdue multi-billion-dollar disaster package. Why can't they just pass that period? Why they got to debate all that? I mean, if we've got disasters, there's parts of the country, including Puerto Rico, that's got $91 billion so far. Yeah, we should help. We got disasters popping up all over, and my heart goes out to people who've suffered all this tornado damage. I know I lived through one that destroyed a good chunk of my house in the early 80s, so I know about that, so my heart goes out to them. But they could just do it. I don't understand all this debate over it. It's all politics. They don't care about you and me. That's the bottom line. And they appeared to be on the cusp of completing before this dispute. So they want you to believe that they were on the cusp of getting this before this. If that's true, if they literally at the cusp of it, then just pass it. I'm sure the crisis on issue for the parties. So CNN is now calling what's happening at the border a crisis. A crisis. They're actually admitting that it's a crisis. Now they want it to be a migrant crisis, not an illegal immigrant crisis, which is really what it is. We don't have a migration crisis. If anything, our legal immigration is probably a little bit too slow. And some people want to stop it altogether. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I understand the points of people like Ann Coulter. Maybe we need to pause it while we absorb all this migration. But it's not really a migration problem. It is a B&E, a breaking and entering problem. That's what we have at the border. But it's interesting that now even CNN and, of course, the New York Times is labeling what's happening at the border a crisis. I thought it was just a manufactured crisis, didn't you, Billy Bob? If you haven't met Billy Bob, he's my psychic sidekick. He kind of keeps me on track. He's got a Twitter handle, by the way. It's at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. But he kind of keeps me straight. I'm a fish whisperer, so I guess that tells you you're listening to a crazy man, I suppose. Crazy, but true, baby. But negotiators are also making steady progress on a broad budget package. Now, pay attention to this. A broad budget package. So that sounds like they're working on a budget, right? Well, if you think that, guess what? You'd be wrong. A broad budget package that could put off a threat of a government shutdown or debt default until after the next election. First of all, we don't have a debt default. We cannot default on the debt. There's mechanisms, I don't need to get too deep into it now, but that is a bogus charge, a debt default. The United States is not going to default on its debt. They might default on some other things, but not the actual debt. There is legislation already in place and rules to make sure that that does not happen. So that's just something they put out there to scare us, to make us go, oh my God, we're going to, the good faith of the American credit. Nonsense, ridiculous bullshit. That's what that is. And as far as a government shutdown, we could use a good government shutdown. It's like, the last time the government shut down, how many people were actually, I know there were some individuals that were hurt by it, but in general, it wasn't that big a deal. And the budget negotiations, they haven't negotiated a budget in decades now. Both sides are equally guilty of this to a certain extent. There may be a little bit of the scales one way or another, but both sides are pigs at the trough, man. If they really had a budget deal, in other words, they actually negotiated a budget, the House put forward what they proposed, the Senate, and they compromised, and the president, and that, they haven't done that in forever. There are these stopgap measures, these omnibus bills that, of course, the president said he wasn't going to sign again, so we'll see about that. But anytime you hear the word stopgap, let me just tell you what that means. That means bend over. You're about to take it, man, because they're about to screw you. So all this is total nonsense. I have a radical idea, by the way, and it's radical because it's simple, right? And that is, why don't they actually do a budget? Why don't they actually do what most households do? Pretty much every business that's successful does, even many states actually do, have a budget. They don't have a budget. They don't want a budget. And when I say they, I'm talking about Republicans and Democrats, because if they had to have a budget, they'd have to spend within that budget. With this stopgap nonsense, these continuing resolutions, they can do whatever they want, and they don't have to. And you don't know where the money's going. You know one thing, it's going down the rat hole of the swamp. Lawmakers said they don't know when those talks might restart, but perhaps this week or maybe after next week's recess once tempers cool. Once tempers cool. Why they got to cool? Why not just do your job? It's more and more the president, I mean, I can't say it any better. Ridiculous bullshit. In this case, Republicans. And Democrats. Sometimes tempers, now let's see who I want to make sure. This is John Cornyn, Texas Republican Senator. Sometimes tempers around here flare and emotions get pretty high, but in the end, we've got work to do. Amen. The best thing we can do would be to try to make progress where we can. And he said, they said that this thing with Trump was fairly dramatic this morning. Well, I hate to tell you, Mr. Cornyn, but now you're spouting Republican ridiculous bullshit. There is no reason y'all can't do your dadgum jobs. For instance, like I said about this disaster relief, go away. If you're on the cusp of passing it, just pass it and put the challenge back to the president. I got no problem with that. If the president, let's take Nancy Pelosi, what she said, that he is basically being a big baby. All right. Well, if that's the case, I don't think it is. But if it's the case, then put it back in his court and see what happens. Don't try to blame the president for standing up to this nonsense about these continuous investigations. It's like they have a continuous resolution. Well, it sounds like the Democrats are continuously resolved to just investigate the president 24/7, even though the Mueller report totally exonerated the dude. So to me, I'll say it again. If you guys are on the cusp of passing disaster relief, then pass it and put it back in the big babies, if that's what you want to call him at the White House. Put it back into the Trumpster and see what he does. And all this other nonsense. Go ahead and pass your bills and challenge the president. I got no problem with that. This idea that you shouldn't put stuff on the president's desk to sign and put pressure on the White House to actually to take a stand one way or another is ridiculous bullshit. It was even during the Obama administration when the Republicans refused to pass things led by Mitch McConnell because they were afraid the president wouldn't sign them. I don't buy into that. Pass your bills, do your work, and then let the president, whoever it may be, in this case Donald Trump, before Obama, and let them take the heat for whether they sign off on it or not. That's how the system is supposed to work. The way they're doing it now, no one is held accountable. If they pass legislation, they'll be held accountable by their legislation they passed, and if the president either signs it or doesn't sign it, he'll be held accountable with them as well. That's how the system is supposed to work. But they don't want the system to work because if it did, they couldn't continue to spend money like drunken sailors. And that's an insult to many drunken sailors, let me tell you. All right, let me calm down and keep going here. Thune, this is the Republican from the Dakotas, he said, it was critical that no matter how bad it is around here, lawmakers find a way to reach a budget and debt ceiling deal. Debt ceiling, that's another one of those bend over and take it deals, and pass disaster aid. How about just do your jobs? How about just take a risk, you Republicans up there, take a risk and actually challenge the Democrats? Why don't you pass some stuff out of the Senate and put the pressure back on the Dem? Pass your disaster aid package and let them say they're not going to support Puerto Rico or Houston or the people that are Florida for that matter, or the people that are suffering through all these tornadoes in Oklahoma and stuff. Just pass it, man. But some of these people, let's hear from a Democrat on this. This is Senator Patty Murray talking about the president and his reaction yesterday at the White House and the press conference after he dismissed the Democrats in their meeting. Patty Murray, who is the number 3 Democratic leader, was in the meeting with the president. She said, I taught preschool. I know a temper tantrum when I see it. Well, maybe he did have a tantrum. If anybody has the right to throw a little bit of a tantrum, it would be the president. She goes on to say, the people of this country expect us to respect and work with each other no matter their differences. Wow. That sounds great. But the reality is, Ms. Murray, let me ask you this. How can you work with people that won't take innocent for an answer? In other words, the Mueller report came out and essentially for millions of dollars, what was it? There's been figures as high as 60. I think the figure that they say is around 30, but there's some people say it was twice that much. 2 years of investigation, protect the Mueller report we have to do, according to the Democrats. Once it came out and said that basically nothing to see here, move on, you won't take that for an answer. Your colleagues in the House and senators too, if they had the power, the Democrats, just won't take innocent for an answer because you are convinced, and I would agree with you on this, President Trump committed the greatest crime in the history of presidential politics. Yeah, I said it. President Trump is 100% guilty. Now, before you tune out, hang in there with me if you hadn't seen the show. The crime that President Trump committed was, wait for it, he won. He won. He won fair and square in the system. He beat a terrible candidate in Hillary Clinton. He ran a better, smarter campaign than her. He won within the system that we had. Get over it, move on, but you can't do it. Now the Mueller report has come out and essentially said nothing to see here. The president was innocent. Move on, but you won't. You won't take innocent. You won't accept election results, and you won't take innocent for an answer, yet you expect the president to just go, oh, well, yeah, you're calling me everything but a child of God. You're trying to kick me out, trying to run me out on a rail. But, oh, by the way, nothing, no problem. I'll work with you anytime, honey. I mean, give me a break. That is not President Trump. And that is, if he were that guy, people like you and me never would have voted for him. I can tell you right now. He would not be president if he were that guy that just caved into these swamp rat Republicans and Democrats across the aisle. That's just the way I see it. It's not just my opinion. It's an opinionated fact, baby. Just accept it. All right, we're going to move on to another Democrat. And this is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I got a couple stories about her, man. She is a gift that keeps on giving. And this is coming to you from Fox News. And it says here in the title, AOC says only a sea sponge would believe her 12 days doomsday remark, but most Dems bought it. Now, I think the title meant to say 12 years, because you remember she said, we only got 12 years to live if we don't do something about the climate change. All dying and stuff. But Representative AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, claimed that the world will end in 12 years unless climate change is tackled, was accepted as a fact by 2/3 of Democrats, even though she said herself that only with the social intelligence of a sea sponge could actually believe it. Now, we're going to get into these. There's a poll out that shows this. We'll talk about it more in a minute. But she's saying that only people with the intelligence of a sea sponge. Now, let me tell you, I'm an old salty dog. Billy Bob here knows a thing or two about a sponge, maybe not sea sponges. She's not giving her base enough credit because I know sea sponges. I've hooked and pulled up to the top sea sponges, and a lot of people out there, she's giving her people too much credit, I should say, because a lot of her base, they don't have the intelligence of a sea sponge. Let me tell you that. Earlier this month, however, Ocasio-Cortez backtracked on the gloomy forecast and instead blamed the Republican Party, well, of course she did, for taking her humor and sarcasm literally. In other words, she's saying, if you go back and look at the tape, you could Google it, but remember, Google is of the devil. I'm just saying, go back and look at that tape she did. I believe she was in Harlem, and she said we only have 12 years. It didn't look like a joke to me, but let's just assume for so that she's right. So what she's saying, we only got 12 years to live. That's a joke. Only kidding. But the president saying, ask Russia for Hillary Clinton's emails, that means what? Impeach 45! Impeach 40! I mean, everybody should have known that was a joke. I think there's no doubt what the president said was a joke. But their result is, we gotta investigate the FBI. The FBI, impeach 45. So no joke on that, right? But Ocasio-Cortez telling us we're all gonna die was a joke. Not joke, I guess, whatever. Knock you in the head, I guess. But she goes on to say, this technique of the GOP, blaming it on the Republicans, to take dry humor and sarcasm literally and fact check it. She said, fact check it. She's saying that Republicans just sit around and fact check me. You know, maybe some do, but let me just tell you right now, there is no way to fact check you, girl. It would take it would take more than one person 24/7, 365 days of the year to fact check you, girl. I mean, there are no facts to check. You have to have a couple of facts before you can check them, man. And there's another story we're going to go in a minute. Just shows just how far out there this gal really is. But it appears, according to the article here, that this is from Fox News, that more than 2/3 of surveyed Democrats took her literally. 2/3. A Rasmussen poll conducted earlier this week found, and this is hard to believe, 67% of Democrats believing that the U.S. has only 12 years to avert the disastrous and irreparable damage to the country and the world. And that was like last year, so I guess we got 11 and a half years to go. And it goes on. This survey gets even worse. So 67% of Democrats, but 48% of the total voters surveyed, and I don't know the breakdown of it, but beyond just Democrats apparently, believe the same thing. 48%, I'm not saying all 48% of all Americans, I don't believe that for a minute, but 48% of all the voters surveyed in this believe in that. Now do you see, ladies and gentlemen, you know, people are always asking me what can they do and should they run for office and stuff like that. And I tell people, sure, run for office, but everybody wants to they want to start with the state legislature. And I don't have a problem with that, but I wish more conservatives, more true patriots, more MAGA hat people would run for school board. That's what we really need. We need to take our schools back, man, because not everybody can go to a private school, and I wish they could. But even people who can go, thinking about the people who are going to public schools who are being brainwashed by this nonsense. And it's only going to get worse. We need to not only take our country back, but we need to take our schools back, probably even more. We'll never take the country back if we don't take the schools back, but that's just my opinion. Ocasio-Cortez has emerged as the key Democratic voice. She seems like she's really the leader. Make her speaker now. Ocasio-Cortez for speaker now. I've been saying that for a few months now. Proposing the Green New Deal resolution that seeks to radically reorganize the economy and ensure climate change is tackled. So I got a radical idea for you. Let me just calm down. People are going to think I'm inciting violence. And I don't think I am, but maybe. All you people out there, the 67% of Democrats that believe we only have 12 years to go, and the 48% of the other voters in this that believe that, if you truly believe that we only have 12 years to live, and you care about this world and humanity, and you care about us here in the good old USA, why don't you just fall on a sword? Why don't you just do us a favor? Now, I'm laughing about it because I don't really want you to do it. Don't come back and John Martin talks and somebody falls on a sword. It's your fault. No, if you're that stupid, it's your fault. But really, if you really think that us human beings are just destroying the planet, then why don't you just do something that you have absolute control over? Fall on a sword, man. Go, go in front of and shout out, I'm going to fall on this sword, and do it. Whatever. The proposal was endorsed. Please don't fall on a sword. The proposal was endorsed by a number of 2020 presidential candidates, even before disastrous rollout of the proposal. Let me back up and say this about falling on a sword. People may take it literally. They may take it, it's a sarcasm, But then again, if you're eating Tide Pods, then, you probably take what I say literally on that. The proposal was endorsed by a number of 2020 presidential candidates, even before the disastrous rollout of the proposal. It was, and I got a name for them, and I'll tell you in a minute, which included the now infamous fact document that suggested making air travel obsolete and supporting those unwilling to work. Now, remember they came out with this fact document, and they said, but the fact document wasn't factual. So why would you call it a fact document? That's what they talk about, fact check. How are you going to fact check it when your own fact document you say is not factual? I mean, geez. And the media never calls them on this anyway. But all the reference to these people that signed off, the 2020 people, that pretty much every one of them at that time, now there's been a dozen more that's entered since, and they're probably all for it. I call them the jackasses on jackasses, because I know we got a debate coming up next month. So it's less than a month away in June for the Democratic Party. My first question would be a two-part question. I would ask them, how many of you, by a show of hands, believe in the Green New Deal of Ocasio-Cortez? And, you know, a bunch of them going to raise a hand because they're going to be politically correct. And then the next question would be, then how'd you get here? Because if you rode on a slow train, a fast plane, or a boat or something, if you went on anything other than riding a jackass here, then you are disingenuous and a hypocrite, ma'am, sir, whatever you're labeling yourself at the moment. That's why I call them jackasses on jackasses. All right, we're going to move on, at least to a point. Another AOC story here. And let me just tell you, man, this story is... I would say it's unbelievable, but it's totally believable when you realize how idiotic these people be. But, you know, I said the other day on the show, I think it was yesterday, go back and check out my podcast. The best way to do that is go straight to John Martin Talks Facebook page. Like it directly if you haven't. Share it with others. I'd appreciate it. I'm really grateful for all the listeners on places like Citizens for Trump, Deplorable Resistance, Media Measures, a lot of the other sites. Our sites are growing. Oh, and by the way, if you have a Facebook site that you are interested in broadcasting our show, just personal message me and see if we can't get it done. But I've been telling you that these progressives will take things to extreme. I mean, that's why I said that yesterday about abortion. You know, it started out with this Roe v. Wade and basically the Clinton kind of mantra, if you will, that abortion should be safe, legal, and rare. And now the entire Democratic Party leadership is for killing the baby, but make it comfortable for, they're literally for killing children who are born alive, you know. I mean, that's how extreme they have become. But these progressives will take it to extreme. And this story shows just how far they go, because now, ladies and gentlemen, I know old white bread, Captain White Bread like me, salty dog me, I'm a racist just because I'm white, especially I got a southern accent. Not to, you know, forget that I'm actually married to a black woman and raising black children and have black grandbabies and all that. But I'm a racist, there ain't no doubt about it. I'm a racist. Well, just how far are they pushing this? Vegetables. Yes, vegetables are now racist. Did you know that? I wasn't aware of that. Vegetables are now racist. I mean, I guess dogs could be, but I didn't know that. Did you know, Billy Bob? I don't know about big mouth bass like Billy Bob, but vegetables are now racist, according to Ocasio-Cortez. And this is coming to you once again from Fox News. Ocasio-Cortez says growing cauliflower in community garden is colonial. In other words, it's like imperialistic white European colonial cauliflower. Now, it's interesting they picked out cauliflower because most cauliflower is pretty white. It's whiter than me. I mean, look at me. I'm red-faced here. I don't need a nurse. I'm married to one, so I do need that one. But Ocasio-Cortez says growing cauliflower in community gardens is colonial. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said Sunday that growing cauliflower in community gardens is part of the colonial attitudes that her Green New Deal will stamp out. So cauliflower, beware. If the Green New Deal comes out, I guess all white vegetables, is just vegetables white or vegetables of color, it's got to go. Let me think about this, man. So the Democratic Party, because AOC is now basically the leader of the Democratic Party. So while the president is in a trade war with China, North Korea is threatening nuclear again, Iran has never stopped building nuclear, and we're now to the point that we're debating whether babies born alive should be killed or not. The real priority for the leader of the Democratic Party is cauliflower. If that doesn't show you there is a stark difference between us and them, I don't know what else will. The New York Democrat who introduced a proposal to tackle climate change by radically transforming the economy posted a series of Instagram videos filmed in her home state talking about community gardens as a core component of her proposal. So gardening will save the planet. It's going to save the planet. Now, what kind of fertilizer are they using on these gardens? Is it like cow manure? Because you can't have cow manure without cow farts. Oh my God. So I don't know what kind of fertilizer. Of course, it could just be what's spewing out of her mouth on a daily basis, because there's a lot of fertilizer coming out of her and pretty much all the Dems running for president in 2020. There's enough fertilizer there. I mean, you talk about greenhouse gases, man, that's what needs to stop right there. She says here, she said, what I love to do is growing plants that are culturally familiar to the community. Do plants know that? It is so important, she said in this while she filmed in a garden in the Bronx. Culturally familiar to the community. Now, I could be way wrong on this, but if you're living in a community, don't you have some say as to what's being planted in your garden? Are you limited by the government choice? Are you only allowed to plant with free government seeds? You only allowed to eat the government cheese? I mean, I can't imagine people sitting around going, I don't want to plant this. I want to plant plantains, like she said. But plantains probably don't grow too well in New York, and she talks about that, about plantains. But I didn't know that that vegetables really pick and choose. Now here, I'm going to tell you, this is going to shock some of you, I know, and I'm speaking for me and Billy Bob here, and I've probably a few members of my family. When it comes to cultural appropriation, especially when it comes to vegetables and meats, cheese, and any kind of food dish, you are, ladies and gentlemen, hold on, you are looking at the king of cultural appropriation. Probably one of the reasons why I look the way I look. If you got some good food out there, I don't care if it's from China, Italy, Singapore, Samoa, I don't care. If it's good to eat, I'm coming for it, and I'm going to culture appropriate every bit of it I can, including your community gardens, by the way. I'll eat your garden. There ain't no doubt about it, man. I'm a big rabbit when it comes to that. So she goes on to say that's really how you do it right. In other words, get rid of cauliflower and put in plantains or something. She said that's such a core component of the Green New Deal. I thought it was like, so doing away with planes, trains, automobiles, and boats, that's not a core component. Paying people who are unwilling to work, that's not a core component. But doing away with cauliflower, that is a core component. Man, priorities. What are their priorities? Cauliflower, I guess. They got cauliflower brain. But she says having all these projects make sense in a cultural context. Everything's called cultural, makes sense in a cultural context. And that's the area that we get the most pushback on, because people say, why do you need to do that? That's too hard. Now, you know, part of the show, I translate things for you. But in this particular paragraph, I'm not going to reread it because my brain is cauliflowered enough. What the hell does she mean? Was someone out there that speaks AOC, please translate this paragraph for me. Go back and look at the story on Fox News about cauliflower AOC. I'm sure you can, and translate this paragraph for me, because I'll be honest with you, I've read it 3 times now. Once out loud and twice to myself. And I'd be damned if I know what she's saying. I still can't figure it out. She went on to add that growing cauliflower in such gardens is a colonial approach, and the reason communities of color oppose environmental movements. So people who grow cauliflower, so if a black person, they oppose, so I don't know, what the hell is she talking about? This is getting confusing to me. She's saying, I think she's saying that people of color, if they see cauliflower growing, they oppose the Green New Deal and environmental movements based on what vegetables are planted. Sounds like she's vegetating myself. She went on to say, but when you really think about it, when someone says that it's too hard to do a green space that grows yucca instead of, I don't know, cauliflower or something. So, you know, if you want to grow yucca. Where is the contingent, the anti-yucca contingent? Is there like a temperance movement on yucca? Is there someone, are there like women marching like the temperance movement? And we got to amend the Constitution. We got to ban yucca. I've had yucca. It tastes pretty good. So I'll culture appropriate some yucca in a heartbeat. She says, I don't know, Caller, for what you're doing, you are taking a colonial approach to environmentalism. I like how she says, but when you really think about it. AOC, when people really think about it, what are they going to think of you, dear? You don't want people to really think about it, because if they really think about it, you'll be a one-term congresswoman if they really think about it. She goes on to say, that's why a lot of communities of color get resistant to certain environmentalist movements because they come with the colonial lens on them. So people are judging environmental movements based on community gardens. You know, could it be? I mean, I'm just going to throw something out here, and this is probably insulting. I don't know. But these are my words to AOC. Maybe these people of color, maybe they're not as stupid as you are. I mean, I can tell you, I grew up, the little town I grew up in, man, we're like 50-50 black-white here. And you want to know some people who can garden, come to Hawthorne, Florida. We got a garden, we got a culture, we got a garden, a big garden here, community garden, and people of all races actually go in and garden there. It's just crazy. But, I mean, most black folks, I don't know, I don't think they judge their politics based on which vegetable is growing in the ground. At least I hope not. Maybe I'm wrong, man. Maybe I'm just way out of step. But Ocasio-Cortez has emerged as the key Democratic voice in how to tackle climate change, going so far as to slam leading presidential candidate Joe Biden. Now, you talk about a cauliflower. There he is. Over reports that he's exploring a middle ground. So old Joe is trying to compromise, according to her. I don't believe that, but that's according to her. He's not far enough left and tackling issues. Now, let me just say, AOC, why don't you leave old Joe alone? Why don't you just leave poor old creepy Uncle Joe alone? He just needs a hug. Just go up there with some yucca in your hand and give old yucca a hug, man. I mean, that's all he wants. If you didn't see him, I got a cat video on my site that shows a Joe Biden cat. Check it out on John Martin Talks Facebook page. Go directly there and like it, by the way. Last month, the freshman Democrat said the migrant crisis, now here's another people saying crisis, said that migrant crisis, so Ocasio-Cortez called it a crisis. Hey, wow. Maybe she's not as cauliflowered as I think. Due to climate change. So in other words, the people are bus rushing our border because of climate change. You know, that's what it is. Addressing climate change, the U.S. would have blood on our hands. Blood on our hands. Now, I'm going to fact check you, right? You asked about fact checking. I guess I'm going to do a little bit of fact checking. Do you realize AOC, Ocasio-Cortez, and all you snowflakes, cauliflowers, the yucca plant, I don't care what you are, do you realize that the United States of America, yes, let me say that again, the United States of America, where Donald Trump is still your president, is leading the world in preventing climate change through it's leading the world in technology to do away with fossil fuels. We are leading the world. We have done, even though President Trump rightfully got out of those Paris Climate Accords, we've still done more than the entire world in lowering emissions. That's just a fact. Check it out. So, I mean, blood on our hands, man. Ridiculous. We got freedom on our... If we were so terrible, why the hell are people trying to come here? United States has... I'm not saying we're perfect by any stretch. We're certainly not. But blood on our hands? Man, she should be ashamed of herself. All right, we got one more story here, man. And you talk about cauliflower and worms and vegetables. This guy, this is a Reuters story, and it's about Avenatti. Michael Avenatti, that creepy porn lawyer, as Tucker Carlson calls him. Trump critic Avenatti indicted for ripping off Stormy Daniels and extorting Nike. This is from Reuters. New York, May 22nd. Michael Avenatti's legal troubles escalated Wednesday as federal prosecutors announced new criminal charges accusing the lawyer and prominent critic of U.S. President Donald Trump of stealing from porn star Stormy Daniels and extorting Nike Incorporated. Before I get any further in this, it didn't make a lot of national news. Did you see where Stormy Daniels admitted that she did not have sex with President Trump? I just, wasn't on CNN much, but she said it. Check it out. Google it. But Google's of the devil, I'm only saying. But let me just say this before I get any deeper into this story. This Michael Avenatti guy, you can go back and look at my shows. It was not that difficult a prediction. But I told you when he first came on the scenes, when he first uttered a word, I told you, shyster. That dude is a shyster lawyer and a crook and the scum of the earth, man. I knew the first time I ever heard that dude that he was a total shyster. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up, man. But and I'm just, how could CNN and all these other people put him at the top? That's part of Trump derangement syndrome, by the way. Michael Avenatti, the fact that they elevated him to such a status is part of Trump derangement syndrome. Prosecutors accused Avenatti, 48, of stealing about $300,000 from Stormy Daniels, about half of which has now been repaid after helping his former client secure a book contract. So, I mean, Stormy, poor little old Stormy, man. He ripped her off for $300K. At the same time, the court has now ruled that she owes DJT $300K. So she's got that's like $600K. She's out $300. She owes $300. She's $600 to the screwed side. I mean, whew, maybe she did have sex with Donald Trump after all. She got screwed out of $600,000 between Avenatti, and I don't think Donald screwed her out of, but I feel for that gal. They also said that he, being Avenatti, has been indicted on previously announced charges that he tried to blackmail Nike out of more than $20 million by threatening to expose what he called athletic wear companies' improper payments to recruits of college. So in other words, scamming college recruits. So I got this idea. Why didn't Nike, instead of trying to expose him, which they did, why didn't they just team him up with their poster boy, Colin Kaepernick? And why didn't they team him up? They could have a whole new ad campaign, and you can steal this if you want, Nike. I won't even ask for any royalties. You could call it the Kneel and Steal campaign. So we got the kneeler and the stealer combined together. Kneel and steal. Check it out. I mean, yeah, I think it's a good idea. Avenatti also faces dozens of charges in California where prosecutors on April 11th accused him of stealing millions of dollars from clients to pay for personal and business expenses and lying to the IRS. But you don't hear anybody talk about, you got to get Avenatti tax returns, service, and a Mississippi bank about his finances. So he screwed over the people of America by not paying his taxes in this Mississippi bank. But CNN made him a hero, as did all these other shows. The Democrats actually supported this dude for president. You might say, well, they really didn't take him serious. Oh, yes, they did. He was actually scheduled before he had that Me Too movement out there in California, where he was accused of battering this woman in LA. Before that came out, he was actually scheduled to be the keynote speaker at a fundraiser in New Hampshire. Yes, he was. He was actually by the Republican Party of New Hampshire. Pretty sure it might have been Vermont, but I'm pretty sure it was New Hampshire. He was the keynote speaker for a big fundraiser and had to cancel it literally a couple of days before because of that accusation the woman had about battery. This guy was on his way to being on that stage, that debate stage. Do not think, just take that at my word. It is opinionated, but a fact nonetheless. If convicted on all charges, Avenatti could face several hundred years in prison. Several hundred years. Well, I don't think he's going to live that long. But it certainly gives him a chance to meet old Ben Dover. And if you don't know who I'm talking about, look up Chevy Chase and Ben Dover. Or go back and look at my podcast like I'm telling you. I've played it before. And he might have a chance to toss a salad or two with old Michael Cohen. So you can be shyster on shyster. I wonder if they call that shyster sex or whatever. I don't even want that image in my head. But let me tell you, he really screwed over old Stormy Daniels. I guess he did. I wonder if he actually had sex. He certainly screwed her. There's no doubt about that. According to court papers, Avenatti diverted a significant portion of Daniels' $800,000 book advance. So who gives her $800,000? But they did. Book advance after sending her literary agent an unauthorized letter purporting to contain her signature. They falsified her signature, directing that the money be sent to his account. So let me get this straight. Avenatti, CNN's hero, whilst poor little Stormy Daniels was still pole dancing out there, he was, as Snoop Dogg would say, living my best life. He's riding around in Ferraris and everything else, while this poor gal is pole dancing. You talk about a war on women, man. The Democrats, they launch one all the time. Prosecutors said Avenatti spent some diverted money on monthly lease payments, check this out, for a Ferrari, hotels, airfare, restaurant meals, car service, and business expenses. So he's doing all this while little old Stormy Daniels, man, is stripping in strip clubs and getting groped by undercover police officers in Ohio, right? When Daniels, I love this part, when Daniels asked why she had not received her $148,750 installment payments, so they're getting 800,000 installments, Avenatti lied by telling her he had yet to receive it from the publisher, according to court papers. Man, this Avenatti guy, I told you, he's a shyster from the beginning. But he is what they call a real go-getter. He's a true go-getter. Because his dream was to find a woman that he could put to work, take all her money, take her to work, and then go get her. He's a real go-getter. He is a piece of work. And it says a lot about the current sorry state of not only the media, but the Democratic Party for elevating this guy to hero status when a blind man could see that this dude was truly a shyster and belongs right where it looks like he's going. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show today as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to John Martin Talks, like it and share it. People have been asking how they can support me more. I'm going to be giving you details of that probably next week because, as I've said many, many times, not everybody can be a fighter. I'm definitely a fighter, but everyone can be a supporter, and that's what we need. Continue to like our program, share it far and wide. You're going to see some improvements, some more studio quality and all that in the coming weeks. But thank you so much. But above all else, like I say every day, from my family, my heart to yours, have a blessed day.